I think we're live now. So, hello everyone. Welcome to another session of HR Mining with Uruj. Our today's guest is Hassan Kilde Bajwa. Most of us know him very well. He is a public figure and an influencer. And especially with his last video, I really want to say an amazing work, Hassan. I love your taking on that video with two ladies who were working as an owner of the restaurant, and they were disrespecting their employee for not speaking proper English.
Mhm.
So I thought to call Hassan so we can help people and bring awareness using this platform.
Thank you very much
So
for having
welcome,
me.
Hassan.
Thank you very much.
So Hassan, it was very upsetting to see these two ladies disrespecting their employee for not treating the proper English, because I myself worked in oil and gas industry for 10 years, and I have hired so many technical people who can't speak proper English, but they were technically so good and they are doing their job so marvelously.
Mhm. That's
So
absolutely
let's
correct. This is a very sad reality that you have a kind of cultural classism. That there are some languages, there are some ways of expressing yourself that are considered to be of a higher value than others. But the language a person speaks is not a measure of their capability or their capacity. अब जारी बात है, if you are talking to someone who wants to be an English lecturer, yes, then the quality of their English is vital. That's essential to their functioning. Maybe
true.
even you can say that if you want somebody in sales and marketing, which by its very nature is a front facing, you have to maintain a certain image and so on and so forth.
Right.
But and there the language capabilities are necessary.
Right.
But in the vast majority of jobs, how you speak is not as important as how you do your work.
Your work. Exactly,
So
I
I
believe.
think now there actually in this particular case there were a lot of people who said, and this is also a reality, कि जब आप hospitality industry, when you're in the hospitality industry, then there is this idea that whoever is the front facing, the restaurant manager, has to be
Right.
very smart, has to be have an easy manner, has to be able to
Right.
communicate with people, has to have a service, a level of service. Among those things is the language and the sophistication. So you can
Right.
set that up as a requirement for when you hire someone. But if you
Right.
hire someone that does not have a certain capacity and then you humiliate him for it afterwards, I think that
Right.
is absolutely unacceptable. Then the choice should have been to then pay the additional amount of money that it costs in Pakistan to have someone who speaks fluent English, and pay
Exactly.
them the wage that is consummate with their abilities and their linguistic abilities. But
Right.
if you are going to hire someone who has no prerequisites, no possibility of speaking English at the level that these ladies were expecting him to, and then
Right.
humiliate him for it afterward, I mean, that's just terrible. That's being a lousy boss.
Exactly, because I think English is definitely an added value, but it's not the ultimate criteria for anyone to do his job. Exactly. So, Hassan, how important it is overall to treat employees with utmost respect and care, regardless of what position they hold in the organization or in the company.
Look, I'm very fortunate in that in my life I have had some periods where I've had to do a whole lot of menial. I've done a lot of different menial jobs. I've done a lot of different jobs where, for instance, I had a company at one point that was putting up telecom towers in Pakistan in the early 2000s. And I was climbing up and down these towers. And, you call people who do this, you call them steel monkeys, because you're literally climbing up and down a
Climbing up.
dangerous tower
Exactly.
and,
Yeah.
and tightening bolts. So I got to do that.
Right.
So basically, my experience has been working at this level that everybody is a human being. I
Exactly.
am very fortunate having worked at this level with the English that
Yeah.
I speak, with the background that I have, with the having grown up as a part of the socioeconomic elite of Pakistan. I am very
Right.
fortunate to have had this exposure, which has ingrained in me a fundamental respect for any human being that is making a living. So
Exactly.
anyone who thinks that because they're sitting as a CEO or as a top level manager, that they are
Right.
intrinsically better than the people who are doing mid-level jobs or entry-level jobs. I think that is a misplaced sense of arrogance. This is a
Exactly.
completely undeserved. And the fact of the matter is, particularly in a stratified society such as the Pakistani, um, the fact that you speak English, the fact that you are getting these high level jobs are
Right.
usually a function of your background, of your family, of where you lived, of the schools you went to, all of which are not your own achievement. These
Exactly.
are the consequences of the wealth of your parents, of your grandparents, of your family's connections, so on and so forth. So to think you're better than others simply because your father or grandfather made a killing in at some point or the other, and, or you have ancestral lands from thousands of years ago, to think that you're better than the person who comes from a humble middle class or even from a menial class and has
Right.
worked their way up and are now doing a job. I think that is a
Right.
completely misplaced sense of arrogance. And the thing is that my experience has been that when you are treating the people that are working for you with respect rather than with arrogance, then you
Right.
definitely also get the best out of them. So the human beings are, we are social creatures, and yes, you can whip a person until they do a lot of do the work that you want them to do. But if you can speak to them, if you can meet them eye to eye, if you can speak to them as human beings, I
Right.
guarantee you that they will do 10 times the work, because then they're not
That's
doing it only for the paycheck or out of fear of punishment or out of fear of being whipped, but they're doing out of a sense of loyalty to you, which I
right.
think is invaluable.
True. Absolutely right. So, Hassan, different people, different mindset. Of course, world is composed of good people and bad people at the same time. So, what advice you want to give to those bosses who use abusive language at work for their employees? I have seen this, by the way. I've seen this a lot.
I think is that what they're doing is that they're shooting themselves in the foot. What they're doing is that they are creating an environment for their employees to feel no problem in cheating, to feel no problem in skipping out on the work, to feel no problem in actually placing responsibility on others. This is a typical thing you see. My experience has been I've been working with some Emirati clients that I had when I was in Pakistan. Um, what I realized was that because that's a very hierarchical, top-down environment, that is the culture that lies behind in the mother company, also that was then in Pakistan. You had people in that company that would actively seek to put responsibility on somebody else because they
Right.
did not want to face the consequences. You know, now I'm
True.
going to get yelled at, now I'm going to get fired, now I'm going to be
Yeah.
humiliated. So you
Yeah.
create a super negative relationship, not just between the boss and the worker, but amongst the workers themselves, because
Right.
then it becomes a constant competition to not be the one who's going to get whipped. And
Exactly.
again, when you create that sort of internal competition, I know there are a lot of people that believe in this kind of competition. I don't, because you can get much more out of the synergy of people working together than you
Right.
can out of the competition from pitting them against each other. There is a lot of effectiveness, there's a lot of productive capacity that gets lost because either people don't want to take responsibility, they don't want to put themselves forward, they won't
Right.
allow others on the same level to go ahead or be successful, because for them there is a value in pulling them down and reducing the impact of what they're doing. So I think all in all, creating a bad environment in the workplace as
Right.
an angry, vengeful, abusive boss is,
Right.
on a moral level, it is bad, but
Yeah.
also as a management strategy, it is ridiculous. It is simply ineffective.
Hmm. Thank you so much, Hassan. So, Hassan, most of the time I have seen employees, they don't speak up because they are scared to lose their job. They, of course, they have their responsibilities, they have to feed their families. So, even if they are treated unfairly, they don't speak up. What suggestion you want to give to those employees out there so that, they can help
Well,
themselves to be in a
the
better
prob-
position?
well, the problem is that you now. Let me give you the example of where I am right now.
Yeah.
Denmark is a socialist welfare economy. This is a country that during the 60s, 50s, and 60s went through a revolution in the workplace because
Right.
there was a realization that the value that is created in society comes from the workers, not from the managers. So almost every worker in Denmark is part of a union. Almost every workplace has workplace regulations, has laws, has workers' rights that they have to live up to. So there is a certain level of security that has been acquired by the working class through many years of collective activism.
Right.
Now, and the consequence has been that Denmark is one of the happiest, one of the wealthiest, one of the most secure societies in the world.
Right.
The problem is that particularly for companies that promote their big organizations, that promote their big businesses, that's a problem, because a big part of the business model of these big organizations is to ensure that they are getting the maximum amount of work out of workers for the minimum amount of pay. So
Right.
part of the business model is based on the exploitation of the labor of the workers in that organization. Now, here in Denmark, I would always tell people, okay, if you feel something is wrong, then you go to the authorities, you talk to your union, you make use of the legally enshrined workers' rights that you have. But in a place
Right.
like the Gulf states, in a place like Pakistan, in a place like India,
Right.
even in a place like America, where there is an
Right.
active movement to quash any kind of unionizing, that's
Right.
not possible. So I genuinely am not in a position to give any advice to people, because their primary objective is to maintain their employment. Their primary objective is to ensure that they are that they're earning their wage, and they are willing to take any kind of abuse. And I'm sometimes shocked at the kind of disrespect and abuse that employees are willing to face. So I
Yeah.
can't tell them, no, you just say no, because then they're going to get fired. I can't tell them, no, you just don't, you take up and you oppose, you reject, because they're going to get fired and then they're going to lose their job. So I
Exactly.
can't actually give any advice. So my focus will always be on the people that have the power, because in these economies, in the Gulf economies and in the Pakistani economy, the workers have no power. They are struggling just to find employment. So that's not where the change can come from, other than if they are able to collectively organize and say, we are not going to endure this kind of abuse, other than if they engage in political activity as unions, saying that we as unions now, in fact, in Pakistan, there was a very fortunate thing that happened for the government employees, that they were
Mm.
able to unionize and through collective action ensure that they got their raises. So that is the only thing that is in their hand, that the only power they have is in the power of numbers. But my advice will always be to managers, to the people who have the power, who are employing these people, that you have to understand that it has been shown again and again across the planet that when an organization, when a society has workers that are not always right at the brink of ruin, when you have workers that have security, that have job security, that have overall a higher standard of living, that feel a certain dignity in their job, that feel no, even if I am a sanitation worker, then I
Yeah.
am still an important person and I provide something of value, then you will get more work out of people. You will get better work out of people, and
Out of people.
your reputation as an employer improves. Now, I
Yeah.
remember this was in the early 2000s. I was at that time based in Islamabad, because I was doing this
Right.
whole tower business.
Right.
Um, at that time, you had the big telcos. You had Mobilink, you had Bharat. Well, Bharat was in Lahore, but you had Mobilink, Ufone, and Paktel it was at the time, and Telenor. And when Telenor came in, now Telenor brought this very Nordic conception of work environment, and
Right.
people were, all the best talent was dying to get a job in
Yeah.
Telenor. They would even go down in their salary simply to be able to work in Telenor as opposed to, for instance, Mobilink or Ufone or Varez or Pata. Simply because they're like, whatever it is, here the CEO has to sit on the same table as us, has to go to the same canteen as us. Here we have recourse through our HR departments. Here we can actually speak about the problems. Here they're not going to exploit our labor because Telenor has some very strong internal HR policies. And that so I think all the best talent in the field would go to Telenor first, and then they would move out into the other telcos. So there is a benefit not just in the effectiveness of the company, but also in their attractiveness to a working to the pool of employees, which is an important thing in today's world, is to maintain every single organization, every major multinational makes a big effort to make themselves attractive, to ensure that they get the best talent so that they can pick and choose amongst the talent rather than having to take whoever comes along because they couldn't find a job somewhere else.
Thank you so much. So, Hassan, what initiatives can be taken to change this mindset, especially in underdeveloping countries? How we can change it?
Well, first of all, I think in developing countries, one of the very, very important parts is that nobody should be allowed to go in and sit in an office immediately. Like, I know that my huge benefit that I've had in my life is that I've done the manual labor, that I have climbed the towers, that I've cleaned the bathrooms, that I've served the food, that I have delivered the post, because I've done all of these things. When I've had other jobs where I've had a leadership position, I was head of an advertising agency at one point, and a big strength that I had was that I could meet the people at an eye-to-eye level, that I innately had a respect for the work that they're doing. So if in big organizations, everybody who has to go up to a management position first has to spend 6 months getting, working on the factory floor, working in the delivery department, the sales department, whichever it is. Firstly, it gives you a wonderful insight into the actual workings of the organization, which I believe everybody needs. And secondly, it gives you a personal relationship to the departments, which is vital, particularly the higher up you get, the ability to go down into the mail room and talk to the mail people at the same level and have an understanding of their job is extremely valuable. And lastly, overall, if you have management responsibility, knowing your organization, knowing the company better is a wonderful benefit to you as a manager. So I think that should be fundamental corporate policy, that nobody gets to go in and sit in an office without having at least a certain amount of time developing their networks throughout the organization. But the other thing we also do, so that is at the corporate level, but we also need at the policy level. There has to be a support from the government for unions. There has to be a development of a democratic culture within the unions. You have to have an awareness amongst the employees that they have the capacity for collective action. When you do that, you are also able to force management to think in a more humane way, rather than looking at employees as disposable parts that you fit into the organization, and when they no longer can work, you fire them, you get rid of them, or when they become complicated, you fire them and get rid of them. So having that sense so we need to work on several different levels.
Thank you so much for giving us these wonderful insights, and thank you so much for being here. I'm really, happy to share these kind of issues with you, because I believe that it can bring awareness, and at least people can understand, and people they might start respecting their employees a bit more comparatively to what they are doing right now. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Cheers. Take care. Okay. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.